Hey everybody, it's May 26, 2018. I'm Justin Costelli. This is all about your Benjamins, and this is your weekly mixtape and weekend review. The last couple weeks you've seen me walking around with 40 pounds on my back. Well, today I'm sitting here with 20 pounds on my lap because Mom is down in Nashville watching the CrossFit Regionals. Shout out to Three Kings teams, the red and black team. They're both down there competing, and what's exciting for our gym, the black team actually won event 1 yesterday. So Mom's out of town. That means I am a single dad for the weekend, which is a lot of fun. I'm enjoying the time with the boys. Shout out to the single parents out there because it's definitely not easy. But if the boys are home alone, that's not a good thing, so I can't go out and walk and do my walking for the March for the Fallen training. So here we are in the backyard. Silas is joining me, and we're going to cover your weekend review video now. So the theme for this week is geopolitical issues and news. Continuing from last week, just real quickly, we talked about oil prices going up, supply and demand, and geopolitical reasons. Well, this week, Russia and Saudi Arabia agreed to increase their output of oil. So as supply goes up, and if we assume that the demand stays the same, prices should come down. So you saw oil fall a little bit. I just bring this back up because we talked about it last Saturday, and here we are again. Geopolitical news, supply and demand issues, changing oil prices for us, just as we mentioned last week. Tariffs in China, back in the news again. Earlier in the week, we saw the market have a positive reaction to the belief that maybe the tariffs were going to be suspended, a trade war with China would be avoided, and then we fast forward to the end of the week and we're talking about tariffs potentially on automobiles coming back in. So the whole discussion of tariffs and trade wars were back on, and we saw the market react negatively to that. I doubt that this is going to be anything that changes, so we'll probably see these headlines moving in and out of the news over the coming weeks and months. But that was a part of this week's news, was China and tariffs back on the table. It was an optimistic look early on in the week, and then it turned into pessimistic or just more of a neutral standing. North Korea saga continues. Earlier in the week, we saw the impacts of the market. Thursday, President Trump announced that he was canceling the summit with North Korea and their leaders, and then Friday it was back on. So I think we're seeing, this is my 2 cents, I think we're seeing negotiations play out over the media and over Twitter, which maybe normally this stuff happened in the background, but we were witnessing the art of the deal. And I hope that as time goes on, you become, I won't say immune to these headlines, but pay less and less attention to them. Don't necessarily ignore them, but also don't let them impact your views on your planning and your investments, because as you can see, one day we're doing something and the next day we're not, or vice versa. But I think that we're going to continue to also see these type of negotiation tactics go on and play out, and the market's going to react and digest information, but I think it will be less and less impactful since we're getting to see this more and more as the weeks go on. In a rare event, we had a bipartisan agreement to roll back some of the regulations that were set forth in the Dodd-Frank law. This Dodd-Frank law came out of the 2008 crisis. It was meant to regulate banks. Some of the reason for banks over the last handful of years not performing as well, at least on a stock market standpoint, is attributed to this regulation. This new change, the new bill that was passed, will roll back some regulations, more so on smaller lenders, potentially giving smaller banks a better opportunity to make money and grow. To be honest with you, I don't know what this impact has in the short term or long term. I don't know if it's good or bad, I'll be honest with you. But it is something that was in the headlines. Headlines because, one, it's impacting banks and regulations. Also headlines because we actually saw two sides of the political parties, both sides of the political parties actually agree on something, which is not happening very often in Washington. So part of Dodd-Frank is being rolled back, really attributed to the lending with smaller banks. The main provisions still remain in force, so it's not everything being rolled back. A big week of firsts for women in business this week. We saw the New York Stock Exchange announce that it will have its first female board president. So I want to make sure I get her name right. Stacey Cunningham is going to be the 67th president of the New York Stock Exchange board. And then we also have the first female leader of the CIA, Gina Haspel. So we have a long way to go on gender equality in the U.S., but I do say it's promising. I do believe it's promising to see women take leadership roles in what are predominantly male-driven industries. So a long way to go, but also very promising to see women beginning to move up the ranks in very powerful positions. So that was headline worthy, I guess. And then finally, I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit. The school shooting crisis hit a little closer to home this week on Friday. A local middle school up in Noblesville, which is our neighboring town, a young child, I will say child because they're in middle school, brought 2 guns to school, shot a classmate, shot a teacher 3 times as he was able to stop the shooter from harming more people. But it hits home closer because, again, it's our neighboring town. The school is less than 20 minutes away, and my best friend actually happens to teach at that school. So this is a trend that is continuing to grow and grow at a faster rate, and it's troubling. There's going to be a lot of conversation about the Second Amendment, a lot of fighting politically between what that means and what our rights are. And my soapbox point is, I think that while all of that goes on and is an important conversation, what's being neglected is the role of us parents. So not to make any judgments on this child's parents, because I don't know them and I don't know the kid, but I do think that we live in an age where there's a lot of distraction. There's a lot of disconnect between parents and children because of technology and just not being there with each other. And I think that if we move and refocus on the value of parenting and spending time with our kids and family, that may have a positive impact on these types of situations. Communication is important. Talking to your kids, knowing what's going on. Are they being bullied, and talking to them about that? Are they being the bully, and talking to them about that? So many times, we don't go out to dinner very often, but it never fails when we do. There will be at least one table full of a family and everybody has a screen on and they're not even talking to each other. Put the screens down, talk to your kids, find out what's going on, be present in their lives, and it won't fix this problem, but I've got to believe that communication and knowing what's going on with our family and our families can't hurt. So I'll step off my soapbox for now, but it's closer to home. It's troubling every time we see it, but now that it's just down the street, I had a few thoughts on it and I wanted to share with you. But I think that in addition to all the political stuff, we also need to look at the family aspect of things and be more present with our kids and know what's going on. So off the soapbox. Well, that is everything for this week in review. A lot of geopolitical headlines, markets up and down throughout the week. Not extremely volatile, but there was the volatility again. So I think that this is going to be potentially the trend for the summer. We're in the old sell in May, go away adage. So summers tend to be a little bit more volatile in the markets if you're concerning about that. Not as many people trading, vacations, all these reasons, but nonetheless, they're all short-term reasons. And I believe in long-term planning, long-term investing, so it really shouldn't even matter in the grand scheme of things. Be sure to check out the Mixtape articles below. I'm losing Silas, so good thing we're at the end. Oh, he's telling you to make sure to check the articles below. So check the blog post below for this weekly Mixtape. Be sure to subscribe to everything All About Your Benjamins, podcast, YouTube, blog, so you don't miss anything. And enjoy your weekend. We're going to be hanging out at home, watching some of the CrossFit regionals. As I mentioned, we have friends out there competing. We'll be listening to the race tomorrow. It's a family tradition in Indianapolis. You listen to the race on the radio and you watch it in the evening, because growing up, you can never watch it live. So enjoy your time with your friends and family. And with that, we'll let you get to your holiday weekend, and we'll see you in the next episode.